CARES Act, the relief that helped families through COVID-19. Well, it's almost expiring and the society is opening back up. But what will happen when these benefits expire? How will it impact our families, our communities, our employees, and employers? This is Stay the Water. I'm your host, Dr. Eric Claville, and we'll be right back in just a moment to discuss this very important issue. Welcome back. It's Stay the Water. I'm your host, Dr. Eric Claville. We want to thank all of you for joining us on this beautiful August 22nd, this phenomenal Sunday here in Hampton Roads and in the surrounding areas. For all our listeners that are supporting us all across the country, from Texas to Florida, all states in between, thank you so much for your support. And of course, we'd like to thank the Spartan Nation for your support as you continue to support our radio station, WNSB Blazing Hot 91, during our 91 days of summer. The school year is beginning back and students are coming back on campus. So we want to thank all of our returning students for coming back, and also our new freshmen who are coming to the campus for the first time, and some of our sophomores. Because of COVID-19, many things were shut down. So we know that a lot of students are coming to campus for the first time. This is a beautiful moment. Our administration, led by President Dr. Javon Adams-Gaston, along with our COVID response team here on campus, all of the support staff, faculty, and so forth, have worked tirelessly to ensure that we have an efficient and safe reopening. So we're thankful to have this opportunity to have our real college experience. But we still have to be safe. We still have to ensure that we adhere to COVID-19 protocol and also our health protocol. Pay attention to your health to make sure that we stay healthy, to make sure that we stay strong, and to make sure that we continue to have a great academic year here at Norfolk State University. Behold the green and gold. And before I get started, I'd like to give a shout out to our two sons, Ian Sebastian and Ethan Alexander. They both had birthdays this week, and today is actually Ian's birthday. He turns 18, a freshman at Howard University studying mechanical engineering and in the Showtime band there. And our youngest son, Ethan Alexander, turned 15 on the 18th. So sons, happy birthday to you. I know you guys had a great day with friends and family. And again, we want to make sure that you guys continue to reap the blessings that God has for you. And also, I'd like to give also a happy birthday to our producer here, DJ Scandalous, Marvin Folks. There are so many birthdays in this month. It's a phenomenal month of August. All these great things are happening. So I wanted to make sure that we greeted everybody. And look, it's the start. It's almost the end of the summer. And that means Labor Day is right around the corner. But also, with Labor Day being right around the corner, that means something else from a federal policy. That means that the CARES Act relief programs for a lot of people are ending. Yes, the CARES Act. The CARES Act was a phenomenal rescue bill that was the relief response for the coronavirus that helped businesses, families, institutions, and the country itself. It rescued it from collapsing. Our country was able to provide these services to all of these industries to ensure that our life continued, that persons were able to continue to eat, had a roof over their heads, continue to take care of their basic needs, while COVID-19 was running rampant through our nation. And thank God for the vaccines. I mean, science, we have great scientists here. We have great pharmaceutical companies that work together tirelessly to come up with vaccines to help combat this latest pandemic, just as they work to combat polio, just as they work to combat shingles, just like they work to combat chickenpox, just like they work to combat many, many other illnesses and diseases, both bacterial and viral, for our society. And COVID-19 was no different. So with that, with the vaccines rolling out, society opening back up, the CARES Act helped to buffer a lot of businesses and institutions, including universities, from shutting their doors so that we can provide the services once things open back up. Now, of course, we do know that there are different variations of COVID-19 still. Out here we got Delta, Lambdas out there. So we do know we still have to be vigilant and be careful. But we have vaccines, and the CARES Act helped us as a society to continue moving in an upward direction. But many of that is expiring. Today on Stay in the Water, we're going to talk about 2 expiring programs. Additional unemployment benefits, or what's called a kicker, which basically was funding that was provided to individuals who had to get unemployment, a little extra on top. And then also the moratorium on evictions. So now landlords will be able to issue eviction notices for people and put them out onto the street or get them out of the property so that they can continue on or start to lease it out. But we're going to talk about the impact of that moratorium in the second part of the show. But here in the first part, I want to talk about unemployment benefits because it's a mixed bag. Now, keep in mind that the American Rescue Plan, it offered federal unemployment benefits until Labor Day, which is on September 6th. But according to CNBC.com, state administrative rules require that the last payable week of benefits to be the one ended on the 4th or the 5th, depending on the state. Therefore, some recipients may get one fewer check than anticipated. But nevertheless, more than 11 million people will lose all benefits or get a reduced check each week until after early September. And that's per one estimate. Federal unemployment benefits expire on Labor Day. So let's take a look at this. Now, when you talk about these benefits, and it's a supplement. So let's look at what the supplement was. That supplement was $300 weekly supplement. All right, on top of it. Now, 26 states ended their federal benefits in June or July, well before the Labor Day cutoff. But this federal program, under the coronavirus American Relief Plan, what happened was those federal benefits helped self-employed people, gig workers, long-term unemployed benefits for individuals who were on long-term unemployment, and individuals who were employed, whether it be private companies, or they're employed in government, whatever the case may be. If you were on unemployment or you had to file for unemployment, you receive this additional $300 kicker. Now, with this particular kicker or supplement, I keep calling it a kicker, but it's a boost, right? It's a supplement. This really helped a lot of people. $300 extra a week. Think about that. A lot of individuals are working these minimum wage jobs. A lot of individuals are not experiencing what we call living wages. So this $300 a week helped tremendously families to not just continue putting food on the table, keeping a roof over their head and the like, but it also allowed a lot of people to get out of debt. It allowed a lot of people to save and create a safety net. It allowed a lot of people to realize some of the and realize careers or other careers that they wanted to do, but they couldn't because they had to work these many, many hours on multiple jobs, some minimum wage, some gig, in order to make it happen. So this $300 a week on top of it was a true savior in that time. Now, if you were prudent, if you were smart about it, depending on what your personal finances are, what your family goals are, your personal goals and the like, you knew that this supplement was not going to last. You knew that sooner or later, the lights were going to get turned off on it or the money was going to run out. We knew that this program was not going to go forever. So if you were smart about it, if you were prudent, you would have saved, transitioned to another career, because also, especially here in the Commonwealth, states provided monies through the CARES Act to allow people to train for other jobs through their technical schools, community colleges, and the like. I mean, it was tremendous. Now, I've said this before, and I want you to hear me clearly when I say this. COVID is terrible. COVID was absolutely terrible, and it still is. Even to this day, I'm hearing of people that I know, or family members or friends that I know that are dying from COVID, still to this day. A lot of people lost their lives, and so many terrible things came out of it. But out of tragedy came a lot of triumph. Out of tragedy came the vaccine. Out of tragedy came businesses in which people found other ways to realize their dreams. There were stories where people were laid off and they didn't have anything. So they say, you know what? I'm going to launch my dream. And you have individuals, women, men, African Americans, people of color, the whole nine, that basically created businesses from scratch, utilize social media and the like. And they've made $1 million doing it, or hundreds of thousands of dollars, or they're realizing their dreams. Some people were able to buy a car. Some people were able to buy a townhome or a home. They've never been able to do that. So out of COVID-19, there was a lot of tragedy, and we continue to see it. But also out of tragedy, we know out of every tragedy can come triumph. It could come new life. And that's what we saw. And the CARES Act helped to give individuals not just a buffer, but it helped to launch and give them new life in many areas. And unemployment benefits were similar to that. It really helped people to move in a direction that they haven't been able to move in. And that was the beauty of this legislation. I mean, when people say, oh, Washington doesn't work, let me tell you, when this CARES Act passed, it showed how great our country can be. Just one example. Our country is great in many ways. But one example of how great our country can be when our legislators come together and work together for one common goal and help many, many people. Yeah, of course, you know, whether it be the state house, the federal house, or local government, making policy is like making sausage. You know, you don't want to see it made, but you love the final product. And that's what this CARES Act was. So some states, though, ended their federal kicker or supplement that was given to them. Again, 26 states ended these benefits in June or July. Now, the states that ended them were primarily Republican, according to CNBC. They cited labor shortages, and they claimed that enhanced benefits were keeping people from looking for work. As a matter of fact, there was some research that was published in very recent weeks that suggested that the benefits played a minor role, a muted role, as the study states, in any lack of workers. But 4 states, Alaska, Arizona, Florida, Ohio, only ended the extra $300 a week, but they kept the other federal benefits intact. And state judges in Indiana, Maryland, Arkansas reversed officials' withdrawal and reinstated those benefits. But ultimately, about 1.2 million workers in these 7 states that were mentioned will lose federal benefits upon official expiration in early September. And in the remaining states, another 7.5 million self-employed individuals, gig workers. When we talk about gig workers, we talk about Uber drivers, Lyft drivers, individuals who are working for DoorDash, individuals who are picking up and delivering groceries and so forth. These individuals and long-term unemployed and others will lose benefits through 2 federal programs. And those programs are the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance and the Pandemic Emergency Unemployment Compensation. So, finally, there are about 2.8 million Americans collecting regular state benefits, and these recipients can continue to get aid past September, assuming that they haven't exhausted their maximum, time that you can actually get unemployment. However, their checks will be reduced by $300. So I want to talk about the second part of this, and that's the labor shortages. You listen to WNSB Blazing Hot 91 here on the campus of Norfolk State University, doing our 91 days of summer. Here on Stay in the Water, I'm your host, Dr. Eric Claville. I'm taking a closer look in our Closer Look series at the impact of the Expiring CARES Act relief programs. And we're eyeing two programs, unemployment benefits and the impact of the eviction moratorium. Here in the first half hour, I've been talking about the impact of the unemployment benefits that are going to expire, supplement employment benefits, and also in the second half hour, we're going to take a look at the impact of the eviction moratorium. So let's take a look at this second, the flip side of the coin. So in the first half, we talked about what the plan is, what the actual CARES Act outlined for federal unemployment supplemental benefits. And we saw that there were millions of Americans that were on this, but it also expires on Labor Day, which means that 11 million Americans will now not receive their unemployment benefits, if they're still eligible to receive them, will be minus $300 per week. So if you're used to getting $600 a week, you're now only going to get now $300, right? But we saw where 27 states ended their benefits early in June and July, citing labor shortages. So let's take a look at that issue. Now, we've seen here on our local news stations here, and we've seen national coverage where as society is opening back up due to the vaccines, many people want to go out. They're going to stores, they're going to restaurants, they're going to clubs, which is, they're going to clubs, they're going to movie theaters, they're going out. They just want to be out. They want to enjoy life as it used to be. But in order to enjoy life like it used to be, now we have to have individuals who can service those people that are patronizing the business. So you need individuals to be hostesses or hosts at the door, waiters, cooks, dishwashers, bartenders, managers, general managers, cleanup crew, opening crew. It takes all of that to run just one restaurant. When you have a tourist area, like we have here in Virginia Beach and in the city of Norfolk, we need individuals that can work hospitality, front desk of hotels, cleaning staff of hotels, individuals who valets that park your car. You need maintenance workers. You also need management, assistant management, and you need everything. And also you need cooks. You need the entire kitchen staff. But one of the issues that we're finding is that they can't find the workers to fill the jobs. They can't find the workers to fill those jobs. Now, I will say this, that I've spoken with individuals within tourism here in the Commonwealth, more specifically Hampton Roads, and we find where the city of Norfolk and Hampton Roads, Virginia Beach, we've done better than the national average. We're in the top as it relates to keeping our beds occupied in our hotels, which means that people are coming here. I mean, we have the beautiful ocean front. We have so many attractions here. People are coming and they wanted to enjoy what we have. And that's one of the great things that we have here in the Commonwealth, especially Hampton Roads. So with that, they can't find the staff to work. So there have been many ideas. What can we do to get people to come to work? So one idea was to end the federal benefits. But we have a governor, we have a state legislature that said, no, we're not going to do that. People need that because people are still afraid of COVID-19. And at that time period, vaccinations or vaccines had not opened up for everyone to be able to be vaccinated. So, of course, we know that the elderly were first. Of course, we were first responders and then individuals in certain industries and the like. And then, of course, it trickled down to individuals. And now we have students who are 12 years and older in K through 12 that can get the vaccine. So now we're asking ourselves, now that the vaccines have rolled out, individuals still can't find, employers still can't find individuals to fill those jobs. So what's happening is that unemployment agency, there's a provision that was created in order to have individuals, in order to receive those benefits, you have to look for a job. And if you find a job, you have to, of course, take it. And what they're finding is people would get hired, but they wouldn't show up on the first day in order to keep these benefits flowing. And they started all over again. Well, that is going to end on Labor Day. So what happens? You're going to have a flood of there are several scenarios here. You have a flood of individuals that are looking for these jobs, which is good for the economy. It's good for getting individuals back to work. But then we have the issue of vaccination. Will you require individuals to be vaccinated? Because if you do not, what could happen is that individuals who are not vaccinated could go back to work, contract COVID, expose individuals, their coworkers to COVID, go home, expose their family to COVID. And the most unfortunate thing that could happen is that you have a death because of it. So there are some things that would have to be worked out, but ultimately we want to get individuals back to work. Now, let's take a look at this other scenario when we talk about getting individuals back to work and not having enough, and having the labor shortage. Well, one thing that this has been able to, that the battle to get workers to come back to work has happened. It has solved the living wage problem. I say that again. This battle between what the federal government was supplying through the CARES Act for supplemental unemployment benefits and what employers were not offering has now come to a head. And we have individuals, we have service sector jobs, fast food restaurants, gas stations. And I guess you can't really call them gas stations now because you can go in there and get lunch and dinner and breakfast and all that good stuff. But we have these industries, hotels, restaurants that are offering bonuses to come back to work, up to $1,000 bonus that you get after you complete, I think, your first week, sometimes after 30 days, just to come back to work. And also, on top of that, they've increased the wage. So where you were making minimum wage is doubled to $15 an hour. Now, you may say, hey, that's not a lot, but if you have someone that was making half of that, that's significant. That's significant. And they're doing it at the same places that they were working. And this was one of the major issues surrounding wages. Minimum wage. Minimum wage was not cutting it because prices were increasing, but the wages were stagnant. So persons had to go into what we call the gig industry. So when Uber opened up, when Lyft became available, and other jobs for contract workers that utilize technology as opposed to brick and mortar to provide services and goods to individuals, it became a way to supplement income. So now you have individuals that can leave work and say, hey, I'll go and deliver groceries for 1 hour, maybe 2 hours a week. that day. And immediately, or I'll pick up I'll drive Lyft or Uber, transport individuals here and there, or whatever the case may be. And they were able to get money deposited into their account right there. That was a major, major lift for a lot of people, financial lift. But because society now, employers have caught up with the living level or living standard of people with a living wage. The question becomes, will they have to work those additional gig jobs? Will they have to work those additional jobs to make ends meet? So that's the other issue. What will we now see with service industries that thrived upon individuals that needed that extra job, but now they're making a living wage at their one job, and maybe they don't need that extra job? Or if you're prudent and you want to continue doing that job, you can take that job and keep saving and create that nest egg for your family and utilize that money to invest, utilize that money to buy property, utilize that money to open up a business, utilize that money to take your hobby and make it a business. We're now using social media to sell goods and serve goods across social media. I'm telling you, technology has changed the game. Technology has provided everyone an opportunity to maximize their potential and become an entrepreneur, if that's what you choose to be. And again, like any business venture, you don't have to do it all by yourself. You don't have to be all things to all men, but what's that one thing that you want to do, that you're good at doing, that you want to share with the world? Then you can do it. Because one thing that only you can do that no one else can do, and that's be you, and utilize the talents, the God-given talents that you were provided. So when we, in our last few moments here in our first half hour, as we take a look at the expiring unemployment benefits through the CARES Act to help families, people, individuals with a hand up as opposed to a hand out, what will be the effects or the impact of that? Now, some people believe that the job that they had, well, first of all, the job that they had before COVID is not there. So these unemployment benefits provided that major boost to them. And they believe that they can't go back into society and find a similar job that would give them the living standard that they were living at prior to COVID. If that's the case, then we're looking at families that are now thrown back into the gig economy, thrown back into working 2, maybe 3 jobs. And the impact of working those many jobs, whether you're vaccinated or not, around many people. And we're not talking about a few. We're talking about hundreds of people, maybe thousands on a daily basis that you interact with. And then the tracing of them interacting with other people that may be vaccinated or may not also provides or compounds the issue of what do we do next. So when we take a look at healthcare and the impact of unemployment on healthcare and employment, that becomes a major issue. But we want you to stick around for our second half hour as we take a look at the impact on the expiring moratorium on evictions. I'm Dr. Eric Claville. You listen to Stay in the Water, and we'll be back after these commercial breaks. Welcome back. You're listening to Stay in the Water. I'm your host, Dr. Eric Claville, and we want to welcome you back here as we're taking a closer look at the impact of expiring CARES Act relief programs. In the first half hour, we delved into the impact of the expiring unemployment benefits. And we took a look at what they were, how much they were, what it was used to help, how it was used to help in various states, the states that ended this program early, and what will be the impact once it ends on Labor Day. How will it impact society? How will it impact employers, employees? In the second half hour, now we're going to take a look at the impact of the eviction moratorium that is set to expire, or has expired already, but set to expire here in September as well. What would be the impact on families, landlords, tenants, and communities? So as we take a look at the impact of the expiring CARES Act relief programs, what comes to mind of one thing that's needed for every society. That's housing. We were always taught, no matter what you get, no matter what you do, whenever you get a job or throughout life, always make sure you have a roof over your head. Because if you have the roof over your head, shelter, that solves a lot of problems. Number one, you have a place where you can go where it's daytime or dark, more specifically doing it in the dark. Number two, you have a place where you can shelter from the elements. If it's raining outside and the like, if it's cold, if it's hot like it is now in a lot of places, and you have a place where you can lie your head. But a lot of people are going to lose that in a few weeks. A lot of people have lost it. Now, officially, the CARES Act eviction moratorium relief program expired on June 30th of this year. And it was extended by President Biden and his administration until September because there was a back and forth on who should act. Should the president act? Should Congress act? And the like. And the fight between this was multifaceted, but it really boiled down to two things. Landlords being able to meet their payments and the impact of putting out millions of families on the street in the middle of a pandemic before school starts. So, it wasn't an easy discussion. It wasn't just a black and white issue, but it was multifaceted. Because we talked about just recently, shelter, having a roof over your head. If you have a roof over your head, you can eliminate a lot of these issues in life. It starts right there. If you don't have a roof over your head, now you compound the issues that are impacting you and your family, impacting your health, especially now during the pandemic, impacting your health. So let's take a look at the policy and take a look at what's taking on. According to the Urban Institute, the nationwide moratorium was slated to end June 30th, but we know that it is going to be extended, has been extended. But some states and localities landlords have gotten around the extension. Many have filed the landlord association, renters association, they filed lawsuits against the Biden administration in order to stop this extension of the moratorium. But with that being the case, according to this moratorium, according to studies, when the moratorium was enacted, it saved and prevented about 1.55 million evictions. That's not people. That's evictions. That means 1.55 million, a little bit over 1.5 million homes, families. And we know in a lot of families, we have multi-generational families. It's just not you and your spouse or your partner and your children, but it's probably their children, and it's probably grandparents, your parents, the grandparents of the children. These individuals were saved because of the moratorium. But according to data from the U.S. Census Bureau Household Pulse Survey, this month it found, of this particular study, 4.2 million adults report being at risk of eviction or foreclosure during the time of the study in July and August. Most of these individuals, of course, they're African American, Black, Indigenous, Latinx, other people of color. There are individuals who are working not salaried jobs, but they're individuals who are working hourly jobs or individuals in gig work and the like. Or they're working in industries that exist no more because of COVID-19. It's shut down. So these individuals have now not only been excluded from home ownership and wealth before, but they're facing even more severe health and economic impacts from COVID-19, according to the Urban Institute. 4.2 million adults. That does not include children. Again, we talked about this before. When you talk about individuals who are who are in danger of foreclosure. That means they're in a home. That means they were paying a mortgage. That means that they had home ownership. But in August, on this month, and especially next month, when evictions go forth, individuals will no longer have the opportunity to be homeowners. They're going to be evicted. They're going to be foreclosed on. Now, of course, they have to go through the foreclosure process, which can take months. But eventually, they're going to have to leave. Their credit is going to be impacted. Their mental health is going to be impacted. And when you're evicted or foreclosed on in the wintertime, your health is going to be impacted. In addition to that, you have children that are attached to those families. School has started in a lot of states. Here in the Commonwealth, school starts after Labor Day. And we know this very well. So what happens when you're going to school and you go into your house and then all of a sudden you don't have a house to go to? Are you going to be able to pay attention in school? Are you going to be able to have a good day at school? Mental health, how is that impacted? Hygiene, how is that impacted? All of these are issues that you have to ask yourself. How does this impact my life? These are the underlying issues that are the result of an eviction, of a foreclosure, that we're not really acknowledging. Now, in addition to, let's take a closer look at this. Let's delve into it from the occupants of these homes, the tenants, and then we're going to look at the landlord side in just a few moments on the other side of the issue, because there's always two sides to the issue. So, not just will an eviction or foreclosure impact your health, impact your credit, impact your mental health, and the like, but it's also going to impact communities. Because now you have all these empty homes that the landlord may not be able to rent out or lease out. You have opportunities for individuals to come into those homes and, unfortunately, take advantage of the empty homes through squatting or theft and the like. So now you have, because of desperation, anytime you have society where individuals are unemployed or underemployed, crime increases, schools are shut down and the like, and especially during a time of a health crisis, this is what we see. This is exactly the type of behavior that comes out of that. Now, no one is inherently born with that type of behavior. We don't believe that. Studies show that. But your society, your environment, and your circumstances creates that type of situation where it can happen. And some people do engage in it. It's not right, but that's what the combination of those factors create. So in addition to the community being impacted, we also flood social services. Social services now have been flooded with people looking for shelter. There are going to be, I've seen it on news reports. You've probably seen it on news reports where now you have a young family who are basically put out of their homes. The landlord can't work with them anymore. And again, we're going to talk about the landlord side in just a second because there's two sides to this coin. And unfortunately, they're out. They're out of the home. So now you have young children who have no place to play or a safe place to play. Now the frustration between the adults, the tension rises. Shelters are overrun. Sometimes you can get a room or a bed. Sometimes you can't. These are all major issues that society and our social programs are going to be inundated with. And of course, in order to receive some services, you need a physical address. In order to enroll in school, they say, well, can you bring us your driver's license? Is this your address on here? Well, if you don't have one, if it's out of state or expired or revoked, can you bring us a copy of your utility bill to make sure that you're in the right district? All right, because there's a lot of things that go on in the school where they have to account for how many children are there, how many people they're caring for, meals, and so forth. I mean, this impacts a lot. So if you can't produce any of that, in some instances, your children can't go to school. So now what's the impact, Marvin? The impact is your children suffer another year of not being in school, another year behind of social, academic, athletic, and art development, which is the whole person. Another year impacted mentally, physically, health-wise by the effects of the pandemic, not just the virus itself, but now being out into the elements and things that you're exposed to because you've lost your home. That's from the child standpoint. And unfortunately, from the couple standpoint, the caretaker standpoint, the family standpoint, now the family unit is in jeopardy of staying together. The family unit is in jeopardy of continuing to be strong. The family unit is in jeopardy of these things, all because of the eviction. Now, some people say, well, there are many jobs out there. We just talked about it in the first half. You know, there are employers that can't find, they have labor shortages. Well, sometimes you have a lot of single parent homes where who's now going to watch the children? Daycares aren't open, and if they are, they're full. And they're very expensive. So the money that you're making is going right to pay daycare. So you're back to square one and possibly taking a few steps back because of the exposure of COVID within these daycare facilities, because no children can be vaccinated right now who are under 12, and your exposure, even if you are vaccinated. So families are making life or death choices on the circumstances that they're given. So you really can't judge a book by its cover. You can't judge a situation by itself. You really got to delve into it and take a look. Now, some people just they can get out there and work, and they're just not going to because of the benefits that are there. So you do have some that are taking advantage of the situation. It happens all the time, whether you're in Wall Street or Main Street, and everywhere in between, it happens. But we're focusing not on them because time will catch up with everyone taking advantage, but we're focusing on the real issues and the real problems by real people, real families, real communities that want to just live the American dream and work toward it, but they're hampered, they're hindered, and they simply can't do it. So with the eviction moratorium ending, now we have to deal with the aftermath of it, the effect of it. Well, we see a lot more tent cities. You know, we've traveled back and forth to across Washington, D.C. and other areas, and let me tell you, we're seeing a lot more tent cities pop up. I mean, we're seeing areas where the homeless, I mean, it's so many tents. You think it's you think it's the Cub Scouts out there in the Tempe expedition, but they're not. People are living out there, and we know that it's not just men that are out there living, but you have women and you have children and you have animals that are living out there, their companions who are living with them, and with that, we know that they're not able to take care and get annual checkups and take care of themselves. So now it's a health crisis that I believe it's a health crisis. It's a mental health crisis. It's a social program crisis, community crisis, and a family structure crisis that we're getting ready to see because of this. You're listening to WNSB Blazing Hot 91 here on the campus of Norfolk State University. I'm your host, Dr. Eric Claville. You're listening to Stay in the Water. And right now we're talking about and taking a closer look during our Closer Look series, during the 91 Days of Summer. We're taking a closer look at the impact of expiring relief programs under the CARES Act. In the first half hour, we talked about the expiring $300 weekly benefit of unemployment supplement provided by the CARES Act and the impact of that expiring on Labor Day and the impact of individuals having to go back to work and not receiving those funds, and the creation of the living wage out of this tug of war of finding workers for worker shortage, increased federal benefits, for individuals who are receiving unemployment, and the date in which these benefits will expire. Here in the second half hour, we're talking about the impact of the expiring moratorium for evictions. We took a look at what families are looking at and looking forward to in some situations as it relates to them losing their homes through foreclosure, them being evicted by their landlords, and also the impact upon the school system, social programs, healthcare system, and the impact of COVID-19 upon these parents, upon families who are being evicted or will lose their home. Also, we looked at the impact upon credit. Now, on the flip side of that coin, it's the landlords, the property owners. Keep in mind, all of us pay a mortgage or have paid a mortgage at one time. All of us pay rent or have paid rent at one time. In other words, you have to pay somewhere to live. And if you're not paying that, you're paying maintenance costs to keep it up. For those of us who have purchased our homes and been able to pay off our mortgages, or for those of us who are still living with parents, you got to kick in something. So, but where does that money go? You drop off your mortgage, your check, you hit click, you mail it in, whatever the case may be. Now that mortgage payment or that rent payment is divided up. It goes to pay the landlord or the owner of the property, the loans that they have for the property. It goes to pay the insurance that they have on the property. It goes to pay their employees who are working and maintaining the property. It goes to pay profit for groups who have purchased groups of property on that property. Now, they have bills just like everyone else. They're just business owners. But what happens when they can't pay their loan that they utilize to purchase that property? What happens when they can't pay their insurance on that property? What happens to the insurance the insurance companies that don't receive a premium for that? What happens when they can't pay their employees? Do they cut staff? They have to keep somebody there, or do they decrease their salary? What happens if they can't pay the maintenance workers to work maintenance there? It's a snowball effect. So it's not unusual that we would see landlords upset that this eviction moratorium has gone on for so long. It's not unusual that we'll see that they're filing lawsuits against the White House, against the government, to stop the extension of this eviction moratorium. One of the impacts that they mentioned, now keep in mind, not just tenants were provided ability to receive some type of assistance, but the federal government also, according to Urban Institute, appropriated $50 billion in emergency rental assistance across several pandemic relief packages. Congress approved them in December 2020 and March 2021. But here's the problem. Agencies were strained to distribute those resources, which meant that many tenants didn't get the money fast enough. And by not getting that money fast enough to tenants, that means the tenants couldn't get money to the landlords. So we have this snowball effect. So let's take a look at it. What is the impact or the effect of evictions, the cost it is to tenants, landlords, and communities? So according to the Urban Institute, they did this study. And with this study, they looked at what those, not just psychological distress, loss of belongings, or education disruption, but they looked at the money, the bottom line, and how these disruptions can be costly both in the short term and also in the long term. So based upon the study, if 4.2 million adults who reported being at risk of eviction in the next 2 months, according to this study of July and August, it's already August, but definitely in September, because we know the moratorium is ending, if they were in danger of being evicted or through a foreclosure or tenant eviction through their landlord, it will result in a total of $6.6 billion in lost earnings, and $5 billion in an increased debt for the tenants. Increased debt of $5 billion, lost income of $6.6 billion. So that means the total negative cost of the eviction moratorium and the impact of these federal dollars not getting to tenants fast enough to get to their landlords because of a strain of agencies. I mean, we're already impacted by COVID. The total cost is $11.6 billion to the economy within 1 year. That's huge. That's massive. We're not even talking about credit scores anymore because your credit score is shot if you go through this. But the impact monetarily is absolutely astonishing. Now, let's keep in mind, evictions are costly for landlords. I've represented some landlords before in court, and, you had to go through filing fees. You have to file it. You got to go through lawyer costs. Of course, you have loss of rent, loss of revenue yourself. And on top of that, you risk, certain damage to units and the like. Because, hey, if people feel like they're not going, I'm leaving anyway, there's no telling what they'll do to your unit. For those of us who are on property, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So wherever you are, keep up your property, whether you're renting or you own it. So with this, we see that according to this study, these eviction-related costs vary greatly across different states and localities, but just using this data itself, I mean, this impact could be anywhere between $8 and $50 billion in lost rent and to repair those units. So you're talking $2.6 to $4.6 billion to serve process of evictions because they got to be served, and then $8 to $50 billion in lost rent and repair to various units. So the impact, the financial impact to society because of the expiring eviction moratorium initially is $11.6 billion, and then approximately $8 to $50 billion in lost revenues and repair to units, and then $2.6 to $4.6 in service of process, which creates a greater strain on our law enforcement that work tirelessly to uphold their duties and for safety of our community. So the sheriff's office is working overtime, or the constable, whoever issues evictions within your jurisdiction or locality. Those are real numbers. Those are real. And then when we talk about the impact of shelters, which we talked about the impact of social programs, we're talking about $5,000 per month per family. When we talk about rehousing them, it's $7,000. And that's what households receiving assistance for about 7 months. So that's what it's going to cost for the impact on our social programs, the impact on our programs within our government to help to address the impact of the issues created because of the eviction moratorium expiring. Well, we see that policy isn't perfect. Nobody's perfect. But we also see where the imperfection of these policies create real issues and problems for real people, real communities, real families, for not just the moment or the short term, but also long term. But what are some solutions? With every problem, and we talked about it earlier, out of COVID-19 came a lot of tragedy, but also innovation came triumph through innovation, through individuals being able to get a fresh start. And also through tragedy comes better opportunities or new opportunities, which leads to a better life. So according to this study, or according to Urban Institute, they give 4 recommendations to help to blunt the impact of this eviction moratorium. They said that states can reinstate the state or local eviction moratorium to keep people housed until emergency rental resources are readily available and accessible. Now, again, this is extending it until resources hit or become available. Not just keep people in the homes until, it's some time that you just pick on the calendar. But it's until that assistance comes to be able to catch up all payments and to be able to help them to pay their debts. Also, you could target rental assistance to households that need it most urgently. In order to do this, jurisdictions should focus on inequities that are attributed to structural and systemic racism, as well as disparate health and economic impacts of COVID. Look at the priority of households at greater risk of homelessness, including those with low incomes and those with histories of homelessness in their area and those with greater need. Thirdly, make rental assistance easily accessible by eliminating barriers. We saw the success of that through the CARES Act, where a lot of these programs were able to be provided because we eliminated a lot of barriers. And then finally, set up partnerships between courts and rental assistance administrators to ensure that no eviction filing for non-payment of rent is processed without tenants and landlords first seeking available state and local rental assistance funds. Partnerships to help blunt the impact of the eviction moratorium expiring. As I said before in the very beginning, the CARES Act, both 1 and 2, were great examples of what happens when our legislators, our representatives come together to address one problem to help society as a whole. But out of that policy, no policy is perfect. When those relief programs expire, other issues are created. But this is where we as a society can come together and address these issues through partnerships, analyzing and what works, what did not work, and helping to make it better. Thank you again for joining us here on Stay the Water. Come back next week as we continue our Closer Look series. Have a great evening.